had this great expectation, a weight on your shoulders going into Blue Peter as a Christian, and it was, there's plenty in the media. Just tell us a little bit about how you yourself became a Christian. Like, you said your dad was a vicar, but how did it actually happen for you to become a Christian?
Well, I mean, I obviously grew up in a Christian household, so God was part of life, and church was part of life. A lot of my best friends throughout all of my youth went to church. So I really enjoyed going to church. I enjoyed going to see my friends, and I knew it meant a lot for Dad to have his family there, particularly when you get to that age where you can decide to opt out. You get into your teens, and it's like, well, I'm going to sleep in today, or not going to go this week. I know for him it gave him it made him proud when he had all of his family there. But yeah, you get to that point in life where you begin to question things. But I often tell this story, not just because it's dramatic, but really it was a seminal moment for me in going, do you know what? I actually, this God that I hear about on a Sunday, he's real. And we were living in a small village in Grimston, called Grimston in West Norfolk at the time, and I was 7 years of age. And it'd been one of those Saturday mornings where it just rained all morning. We were going stir crazy. Dad had been out at meetings, and I had two sisters. So I've got two sisters, Becky and Hannah. Becky was 6, and Hannah was not even 1 at this point. And we got to sort of lunchtime, and the clouds cleared, and the sun began to come out. And Dad said, "Look, let's get out. Let's go for a walk." So we drove to some woods near where we live and went for a walk. And we were going down this big clearing in the middle of these woods. It's essentially just a massive pine forest, but there's other trees in there as well. And I'm at the age where if a tree's climbable, I was going up it. And we got to this really big kind of yew tree. And Thomas, sure enough, scampers up it and starts playing around. And then eventually I came and sat down with my legs dangling like this in the kind of yew bit. And my dad was sort of stood here. I remember my sister Becky stood there. My mum was holding Hannah just in front. And it started to rain again. And Mum said, "Look, I think we should move to the other side of the clearing to get shelter." And we sort of looked at her like she was slightly barking mad, because we were already being very nicely sheltered by this tree. And about half a minute later, she said it again. She said, "No, I really do think we should move across the clearing to the other side." And again, Dad sort of said, "Oh, Jill, come on, we don't need to move." And then I can still, and this is 41 years later, I can still see the look in her eye when she looked at me and Dad and said, "I really do think we need to move now." So to keep the peace, Dad said, "Look, come on, Simon, get down from the tree and let's move over to the other side, keep your mum happy." So over we went. And I would say probably 20 seconds later, as we get over the other side, it was like the roar of a tornado jet coming through the woods. Incredible sound. And I remember looking up and just seeing this kind of, it was like a tunnel of fire above our heads. And there was this almighty explosion. We can't see anything for the smoke. And then this huge thud. And as we looked, as the smoke cleared, the tree where I'd been sat not a minute ago had been blown apart by lightning.
Wow.
And we headed back to the car, and we're in tears and, very traumatized. And later that evening, some friends of ours, and I wish I'd got it to show you, because it's an amazing picture. I've still got it. I don't know where it is, because we moved house a few weeks ago. But we went back that evening with a friend of ours, a very good photographer, and just to see the tree. And I've got a picture of this shattered tree. And some very good friends of our mum and dad were there. And Rosemary, who was a Christian as well, said to Mum, she said, why did you move? Because the story, when you hear it, doesn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. And Mum just said, I just heard this voice saying move. And I really do believe that was God. And actually, many, many years later, I was at a big Christian event, and this guy just came to pray for me. And he knew nothing about me. I wasn't on Blue Peter at this time. And he just said to me, he said, "I've got a really strong feeling that around the age of 7, you had an experience that really demonstrated very powerfully that God is real." So I often look back when I've gone through things that have tested my faith, made me question God's character. I look back to that day and go, that's the day for me when God made himself feel very real.
Excellent. Fantastic story. Now, of course, Blue Peter wouldn't be Blue Peter without the badge. Have you got the badge with you, Simon?
Wait there. I literally okay. Just wait there.
We have to see the badge.
I may have one.
Well done, George.
This is the first time I've ever done this Live. I'm sorry, everybody, for disappearing, but this is going to be worth it. Okay, so this is not just a badge.
Yeah, I read about this badge. Yes.
This is the one I was given on the day I left. So there's the box.
Yep.
And inside is one of these.
Wow. Now you got that.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen, a gold Blue Peter badge.
Wow. Now you got that presented to you, of course, by Her Majesty herself.
Well, no, I presented the Queen with the badge.
I see.
Badge. Yeah.
What was that like?
Actually, it's funny enough. I was talking about this yesterday with Ethan, my boy, because he said, "What was it like to meet the Queen?" And I said, "It's a really surreal moment because I'm betting there's probably no one on this Zoom evening who's older than the Queen. So for all of us, I think I can fairly safely say
you haven't met Ellen, obviously.
that she's been an ever present in all of our lives. You know,
Yes.
whether you're a royalist or you're not, she has been there throughout all of our lives. So when she walked into the studio that day, and it was part of her Golden Jubilee celebration. So they were visiting her and the Duke of Edinburgh, various British institutions. I think he'd gone to British Airways that day, and the Queen was coming to visit BBC Television Centre, and she was going to see two shows. One was BBC News and the other was ours. So we had this long lineup in the studio of past presenters. So Valerie Singleton and Peter Purvis were there, former editors like the famous editor Biddy Baxter, lots of people who've been involved both now and before were in the studio. So there's this huge long lineup. And my boss said, "Look, we want you, Simon, at the end of the line to be the one who gives the Queen the gold Blue Peter badge, basically because we think you're the one least likely to mess it up." So I said, "Okay." So about an hour before the Queen arrived, her press secretary came into the studio, and we were all lined up, and she came along to each of us and said, "What are you going to say to the Queen?" And she also told us what you do in terms of, right language and bowing and all those kind of things. And I said, "Well, I'm going to do a gag." And she said, "Well, Queen doesn't do gags." And I told her what I was going to say. She said, "You cannot say that. I'm going to come back in 5 minutes and I'll let you know what you can, give me something else." Anyway, she came back about 5 minutes later. She said, "Look, if you stick to those words, you can say the joke." I went, "Okay."
He's coming. Jesus is coming. I can't wait to hear the trumpet call. He's coming. Jesus is coming. And when he comes, we'll crown him Lord of all. And when he comes, we'll crown him Lord of all.
And going into a career with Durban City that got me a lot of goals. I played as right winger. I won 3 championships, a Castle Cup and 2 UTC Bowls, which is like the FA Cup and the League Cup, which is now sponsored names. So I won 3 of those. I won a senior Curry Cup again, scored 3 goals in the final. I wasn't going to play. I was the lighty, the youngest one with another guy. 2 guys got injured. They were strikers. The coach threw the 2 kids in, which was the fellow Alistair McLean and myself. In the semi-final, we won 2-1. We both scored the goals, 1 each. The guys were still not fit. They played us again. We won 3-1, and I got the 3. So here's my career starting to roll, because that was just as I signed for Durban City. So what happened at that point, I had 66, I started playing at 18. 67, I was with now Durban City. 68, I was with Durban City. And I've got 4 championship medals in South Africa. And I'm still a teenager here. So by the time I get to the end of 68, I've grown up, I'm 20, I'm 21. And I'm wanting to go to England and play. It was my childhood dream. And I'll go back to my dad now, because while I watched him die for 9 months, there's no God in any reference to our family, nothing whatsoever. I cursed the name of Jesus every day. I just cursed it. At the funeral, I broke down, because I'm not going to see my dad again. There's no chance for reconciliation. There's no chance to get to know him. Somebody took me home. I'm in my bedroom. A fella comes into my bedroom and points his finger at me and says, God's not finished with you yet. He's got a plan for you. That was David. And I sat there and looked at him. I said, is that why he allowed a good man to die? I didn't know my dad. See, I don't know. And David was the smartest man on the planet. He just put his thumb up, walked out of the door, didn't say another word. If he had said another word, I would have cut him, what he said, everything off. But God had a plan for me and a direction. And one of those things was I pestered the owner so much to get me to England. And he had a deal with Chelsea that would send players to South Africa that weren't going to make the first team, but they were good players. They would go somewhere else, and Dave Sexton would sell that sunshine and ocean and beaches, and they were over there. And they would play. They were very good players. Some of them were excellent, excellent players. And they stayed there a long, long time. And so here I am pestering Mr. Elliott, the owner. And I know that he got rid of me to say, you've got to trial. I just fixed it up for you. You've got to trial with Chelsea. I went, right. Here I am, 1968, December. I'm putting in my beach stuff, my flops, you know, these things you buy for a few pennies, and you put these flops on, and then, you know, and you walk around with just one thing between your toes, carrying you all over the beachfront. And they're in the bag, a couple of sweaters, a pair of jeans, nothing else. I get to London. Who turns up? Ron Stewart, my brother's ex-coach, manager from Blackpool. And he looks at me and he says, oh, I got a chance now. The first one didn't work out because he loved golf too much. His desire was to play golf. Football was a way to make some money, and that was it. There wasn't a lot of money in those days, but much, much more than the normal regular worker that was out there. And so here I am thinking, okay, I'm going to get it now. It's okay. You look after me. It took 2 weeks to get a visa. I think they got that through Richard Attenborough and a few others, Chelsea fans. Politically, they got it very quickly. And here I am running up the stand, the huge stand, when you come in on the left past the shed. And I'm running up and down, and Ron's making sure that I'm not going to be Peter who just loved the comfortable life. And he ran me up and he ran me down, and I said, I've counted them all, Ron, and he ran me up and he ran me down. I look back on it and it kept me. So I had 2 weeks to prove my worth, because it took 2 weeks to get the visa. The first game, and I've never seen mud like this in my life before. I was so grateful for me running through 9 inches of water on Durban beaches. I just thought I'd better do it. I had no reason for it. I didn't know. Here's God again, directing my path to be ready to stay at Chelsea to do something that later on would become the salvation of Derek Smith. And so I ran through this water, 6 inches, 9 inches, and the drag on that water was full. And I was doing it on my own every day. Nobody joined me. They thought I was a lunatic. You know, they'd go surfing. I'm going, do I need to? I'm going, I've got to do this. I have to go. And so within the first game of the 2 weeks, which was 2 games, within 20 minutes, I had 2 goals in the reserves. My brain was aching, my ears were hearing music, my eyeballs were itchy, and my voice was scratchy. That's how my body felt. I mean, my legs were on fire. The mud. I went, are you sure you want to do this? Durban beach, surfing, young ladies, all walking down the beach. But my desire as a kid was to get there. So I'm an amateur now for 2 years. I can't sign professional forms for 2 years. It was the law of the land. I had to fulfill that qualification to become a professional. And I ended up scoring. I was the leading scorer in the reserves for 2 years. 1 year I was out for 3 months with an Achilles tendon strain. And I still led, and a lot of teams were looking at me. I didn't know that. No agents in those days. I was my agent from 6 years old. You know, the kid that walked down the road and took a right look and went, well, they're playing there. I can clean my shoes up and all that later. So I was my own agent. Had I known, Chelsea would have been history, but so would Derek Smithers. God's plan was Chelsea. And here's a surfer beach boy who went to England, had 2 games. I scored 3 or 4 goals in 2 games in the reserve team. And so they kept me. They wanted to see more. That was Ron.
He's coming. Jesus is
Life Stories.
So that was April, and then the following month, which would have been May 1994, I got picked to represent my country at England under 21s, and I went on tour. We went to play in a tournament called the Toulon tournament, which we won. We won that tournament. I finished top goal scorer. I got this big golden trophy that I've still got to this day, and all of that happened in the space of 3 months. And I always communicate this message to the kids that I work with and to young people, to my own kids, the importance of making the right choices. Choices can make you, choices can break you. And if the truth be told, I always tell people this: I was that close for making the wrong decision, because when Kenny Jackett initially said to me, for you to get your apprenticeship, you're going to have to leave home, my initial response was, I'm never leaving. I'm not leaving my friends, I'm not leaving my mum. Okay, but I knew I had to make that choice, and that decision changed my life. And what I normally do whenever I do this talk, I show a few bits of memorabilia, and I always do this for 2 reasons: as inspiration to other people, especially when I'm doing this in schools, as encouragement, but this is a reminder to me personally that, Bruce, look what has happened in your life because of a choice that you made. I'm just going to blow my nose, excuse me. And so, some people don't know, but when you play for England, you actually get a cap. Okay, so sometimes you hear that a player might get a cap, their 10th cap, 11th cap. You actually do get a cap. Okay, and this is really special to me. This is my England cap, as you can see. It's got UEFA under 21s championship. That's 96 to 1998. That's my England cap. Okay, this means a lot to me. Okay, again, this is a reminder to me personally about the power of making the right choices. So that's my England cap. This is my Liverpool shirt. Okay, so this shirt's really special for me. I always say, I think there's only one legend at Liverpool, really. For me, this shirt is actually gold dust. I tell you, I'm so blessed to have it. And on the back is no other than Steven Gerrard. Steven Gerrard. And so if you're not from England, okay, if you Google Steven Gerrard, he's an absolute Liverpool legend. Okay, this shirt is gold. I tell you, it really is, and I'm so glad. So when I was at Watford, we played Liverpool in the quarter-finals of the Coca-Cola Cup. We lost 2-1. Guess who scored Liverpool's goals? Steven Gerrard. Okay, and I was blessed enough to get his shirt, and I'm so happy. So that's my Steven Gerrard shirt. This shirt's a really special one. So this is Real Madrid. This is a Real Madrid shirt. Okay, and there's a bit of a story behind this shirt. Okay, but on the back of that is no other than David Beckham. Okay, and so most people around the globe, they know David Beckham. Okay, as you can see, it's signed to myself. Okay, so this was David Beckham's shirt, a Real Madrid shirt. Okay, but an interesting story whenever I do, when I tell this story. And so David Beckham is from East London, and I'm from East London too. We actually used to play against each other when we were kids. We were rival teams. Can you believe it? It's funny how life works out. We were actually rival teams. He used to pray for a team called Ridgeway Rovers. I used to pray for a team called Grasshoppers, and we used to battle it out. And I always tell people this, my memory of David Beckham was when he used to lose, he used to cry. He was a crybaby. But in his defense, David is really, really passionate. But I tell this story about David in utmost respect to him, that, you know, David entered a competition at the age, I think it was 15. It was at Bobby Charlton's soccer school in Manchester, which he won the competition. And part of the prize was an apprenticeship with Manchester United. Now, if you're not from England, okay, David's from East London in London. Manchester's about 4 or 5 hours away. That would have been a massive commitment for him as a young kid to make that choice to leave London and move all the way to the north of England to pursue his dreams. But who thinks he made the right choice? Oh, absolutely. And I've got so much respect for David, because I actually don't think David Beckham is a Lionel Messi or a Cristiano Ronaldo, but from David's childhood, okay, he worked on his strength. David was extremely fit. He was a set-piece master, a phenomenal deliverer of the ball, extremely fit, great vision, and he worked really hard in those areas of his strengths, okay? And most of the ladies that I work in schools with, when I show them that shirt, they all in agreement that he's good looking. And so David Beckham, he has done extremely well with the full package. He's a great example of using what you've got. And I believe, me personally, that God gives everyone gifts, and some people use it well, some people don't. And I've got so much respect for David Beckham, for what he's done with his life and the talent that he has had. And so football has been phenomenal. Honestly, that decision that I made as a kid has changed my life. I'm in the history books in United Kingdom. That can never, ever be changed. It can never, ever be taken away simply because of a choice that I made when I was a kid. And I do believe every day, every week, every month, there's opportunities before us. And it's so important. I remind myself, I'm 45 years old, and I'm still reminding myself now, Bruce, choices, decisions. Think about what you're doing. I tell my kids all the time, choices, decisions. And so that's one choice that has that's changed my life. You know, as I said it, and I say it with the greatest of humility, because I'm so grateful to God, because vast could have been the difference. I've made some really bad decisions, and to know in the midst of making some bad decisions, okay, and making some good ones, that I'm in the history books in this country, it means so much to me. But the other choice I want to talk about, which for me is the greater choice, it has more power. It's had a greater impact on my life. And that was the day that I became a Christian. And many people say to me, when I say that, you're a professional footballer, Premier League, and you're saying that the choice of you becoming a Christian means more. Like, that don't make sense. It makes loads of sense to me. And so I grew up in church as a kid. You know, my uncle's a bishop of a church, my mum's a minister. You know, I understood church, okay? As Afro-Caribbean kids, you had to go to church. I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I don't want to go to church. And I dare not say that with my mouth and express that, but in my head, oh gosh, I want to go to the park and play football with my mates. And so I had to go to church. And so I understood what church was. I actually did believe in the message. You know, I grew up, you know, at home we used to have family worship. My mum would pray with us, we would read the Bible. But I always tell people this, and I mean it, this is something I communicate all the time. There is a difference in having knowledge of Jesus than having a personal relationship.
He's coming. Jesus is coming. I can't wait to hear the trumpet call. He's coming. Jesus is coming. And when he comes, we'll cry.